Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Mom.
Thank you so much for joining us here today.
Yep, thank you for joining with us again.
We always love doing this. And Mom, this is April 1st, 2026.
It is April 1st, Brandon, and what does that mean?
It's the anniversary of General Hospital.
It sure is. Happy 63rd year, General Hospital.
Yes, and it's fitting that this is the 63rd year, and the show came on in 1963.
I know, that's unbelievable, isn't it, Brandon?
It is indeed, and what's even more unbelievable is what we're doing in this video today.
Yeah, Brandon, what were you doing in 1963?
I didn't exist. You didn't exist.
Yes. All right, all right. So what were you? What were you getting ready to say?
So, Mom, what are we doing in this video?
We are actually going to look at an episode of General Hospital that aired quite a few years ago, but we're going to talk about the 30th year anniversary of General Hospital and that episode that aired that year.
So this is episode from April the 1st of 1993.
Yes, and we selected this episode because we wanted to honor General Hospital in a way, but we chose this because it was a celebration. It was a celebration with a lot of I guess, our anchor characters on the show, and so we thought this would be a good one to kind of explore.
Yes, it is. And Mom, are you ready?
I sure am, Brandon. Do you want me to start it?
Go right ahead.
Alrighty. One of the reasons that we kind of selected this episode also is because it's a reflection show, and we think that's incredibly important because we like to go back and look at episodes that do some reflections of things that have already occurred, and so this was in a double whammy type of way. And we say that because in this particular episode, Steve Harvey comes. He's out of character, of course, and he comes out, and the gentleman John Berardino who played him, he introduces everything, and he thanks everybody for watching General Hospital, and he goes through the set, and then all of a sudden we see a new theme song, which is very nice. It was Faces of the Heart is the theme song that was done at that time period, and so during the episode itself is a reflection because they go back and they actually talk about the first episode and then show scenes of the very first episode that occurred in 1963. And they incorporated the storyline, which I thought was incredibly great. Brandon, do you want to let the audience know who they brought back from that first episode?
Yeah, so they brought back Dr. Hardy's very first patient from episode 1, and so this was a patient who had just gone through a car crash, and she had a sort of face disfiguration, and so the main episode, first episode, focused on her, and so I believe they ended up saying that we're now considering that Dr. Hardy's first patient at the time, General Hospital.
Yes, they are saying that she was his first patient. And so I thought they did a nice job with that. And then what I thought was nice, they brought some closure to her because I believe she was there for a grandchild, I believe. But yes, so I like that they brought closure to that and to show that she was able to move forward in her life. This was also a reflection because it actually shows the impact of Steve Hardy in the show. And so they had, of course, a surprise party for him. And so I like that people gave information about him, but you got to see his personality because at that time, and I did watch General Hospital back then, Steve Hardy, although he was one of the main characters, his plot line had been dwindled down at that point. And so I like that they actually brought him up and talked about him as a character.
Yes, and I felt that this episode, we spoke about in the very first episode, our discussion of do we feel that episode 1 of the series still feels like that same show that we're watching, present day 2026 or at the time 2025. It's like, well, we see certain elements, the hospital, and to focus in on the characters, even though the characters are different. But I feel this episode felt like a nice halfway point between the show we have now and the very beginning of the show.
Yes, they did a really good job with that. One of the other things that I really like about this episode that we rarely see on General Hospital is that I believe almost all the cast was there for this episode. I mean, most of the time when you see the cast come in, if they're not within the first 10 minutes of the show, they're just not there. And so it was nice to see the whole cast come in regardless, and they pan the room. And I thought it was nice to see, and I did write down some of the characters that we saw there. We had Scotty, we had Edward and Lila, Robin, Bill Eckert and his son. And so there was just Amy Vining, the nurses that were there at the time period, other nurses that were there at the time period. And then we saw a young Kevin. Well, actually, I think it was Ryan. It was Ryan who was on this time, and not Kevin. But regardless, and then we saw Mac and Felicia. So it was nice to see some of the characters who have come back, and then some of the characters who are no longer with us, but just to see them all together in one particular scene and to see it panned as they showed all the characters.
Yes, and don't forget about Bobby and Tony Jones.
Oh yeah, how could I forget Bobby and Tony Jones? And especially so pivotal since right now, where there's a focus on Lucas on General Hospital, so it's nice to see the anchor that was originally there.
Yes, and I feel that this speaks to the strength of the multi generational storytelling of the show. That even though some of these actors are no longer with us, or the characters, I should say, is that these families that we've seen and the stories that we're told are still reflected in present day.
Yes, very very true, Brandon. Very true.
But yes, but I really thought they did such a nice job, like I said, with the intertwining of the present day and the past, as you were mentioning, and just the legacy of the character of Dr. Hardy, the legacy of the hospital itself, and then of the show overall.
Yes, they did a really really nice job. And so when General Hospital does things well, they do it well, and this is one that they did really well.
Yeah, so what were your thoughts overall about John Berardino's introduction at the very beginning before introducing Faces of the Heart?
I thought they did a really nice job because he was the anchor of the show. He was the first character on General Hospital. And so, or the first main character on General Hospital. So it was nice to see him go through and to kind of explain everything. And then it actually started with he and his wife at the beginning also. Even though John Berardino came out at the beginning, but in character back as Steve Hardy, he was there with his wife, and we know that his wife is Elizabeth's grandmother, and so we've got another link from the past to the present. Although Elizabeth wasn't in that scene, it was nice to see. Well, she wasn't there at that time, but but it's nice to actually look back and say, oh look, there is the grandmother that Elizabeth talks about.
Yes, and I thought what's nice too is because even though in present day we don't see the hospital per se in a hospital role as much in present day, is I do like that it was such a center focus of this episode.
Yes, I did like that too. I really did.
But yeah, and how do you feel this compares even to the episode one we discussed this time last year?
Yeah, this time last year was Monica's wing being dedicated to her. And I thought this episode of General Hospital, the 30-year one, was much stronger because they were able to go back and forth and show those scenes that they don't typically show now. And so I like that they did that. Now, the Monica storyline was very nice, but we don't see any of it being used right now. You don't see people on the new Heart Wing that they had dedicated for Monica. And so, but you do see that actually you see almost everything that they did back 30 years ago is still being used now. That's so I guess that's the difference there.
Well, yes, that is true. And this year, in 2026, it doesn't seem like they acknowledge the anniversary, um, within the setting on the day of. But going back to us last year in our discussion, we discussed the 1963 series premiere, and so how do you feel episode year 30 compares to the very first episode of the show?
Year 30, um, I think they come full circle. I mean, if you just talk about General Hospital as a whole, I mean, we started off with a half-hour show that had what, five characters, it seemed like, and then look how it's grown with the, the multiple casts that they have now, and then how the same characters, a lot of the same characters who were there are there now too. They're back again, so I think it's come full circle.
Yes, and even though we haven't seen it in a moment, I do really like the memorial wall that they have in present day that has many of these original main actors and characters up there, and yeah, and showcase the history. And I think that's something that has always been one General Hospital strong suits is building on the history and not just forgetting about it.
Yep, I agree totally with that, Brandon.
Well, Mom, is there anything else you want to mention for the 63rd anniversary of General Hospital and our discussion about the 30th anniversary episode?
No, I don't think so, Brandon. I enjoyed watching it again last night, and I look forward to more discussions about General Hospital.
Yes, I certainly do as well. And, like they said in the video, they said continue watching for another 30 years. And again, that's 33 years ago now.
I know, and yet I'm still watching. Yes, yes, it is great. So 30 plus years later, I'm still watching.
So, yeah, so you listen to Dr. Hardy.
I did listen to Dr. Hardy. Well, we thank everybody for watching today.
Yes, and we look forward to seeing you for more Port Charles chats and discussions here on Tansson TV Plus.
All right, have a great day, everybody.
Enjoy the General Hospital anniversary.
All right, bye bye.